Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today for TCU Presents a Song and Dance, a special gathering of three great Theater TCU alumni, all of whom have appeared in national tours of Broadway musicals. My name is Harry Parker. I'm just so pleased to be tonight's moderator. I'm in my 20th year as a professor of theater here at TCU, and I also happen to be a TCU alum, class of 1980, just a couple of years ahead of these other folks that you're going to meet. I want to thank the TCU Alumni Association, TCU Magazine, and the Office of Social Media Management for coming together to produce this special session of TCU Presents. I can promise you the four of us have been looking forward to spending an hour talking to each other. Thanks to TCU for letting it happen. You all can watch too. That'll be great. TCU's nationally recognized theater program is known for being very selective. Most of the 16 to 20 incoming BFA performance students each year at TCU are recruited through national auditions, and our overall acceptance rate in theater is less than 7%. Most every theater student who comes through our program has the talent to succeed as a professional performer, but as you know, in this field, hard work and preparation are also critical, and of course, luck undoubtedly comes into play. I think we're going to hear about some of that. And it's just notoriously difficult to make it. But in professional theater, our alumni are regularly cast in exciting productions around the country. And here are three examples. You know, those of us who are on the faculty here are always thrilled to hear from our alums with their latest news. And when one of our Horned Frogs joins a national tour of a Broadway show that comes to Fort Worth or Dallas, you know, in some ways it's even better than being in a show in New York because they come to us and we get to cheer them on from the audience. And I have done so with all three of our guests not very long ago. I saw John Devereaux took on a leading role in Hamilton at Bass Hall. I got to see Alison Whitehurst when she came to Dallas in Beautiful, the Carole King musical. I've seen Jackie Ray's tour of Wicked twice, once in Atlanta and once in Dallas. And there's really no thrill like it for a teacher. I can promise you that. So these three are all accomplished. They're all talented, but I'm just going to tell you because I know they're also three of the best human beings on the planet. So we're in for a nice hour together. That's going to be fun. All right, I'm going to introduce them. Are you ready? Number one is John Devereaux, who is from Houston, Texas. John joined the ensemble of the Hamilton National Tour in 2019. He covers the leading roles, we'll talk about that in a minute, of George Washington, which he performed this year in Fort Worth, of King George, which he performed this year in Houston, and also Hercules Mulligan / James Madison. John discovered performance at the age of 14 after being persuaded to be in a play most of his close friends were in. He did major in theater at TCU, where he appeared as Mitch Mahoney in the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee as the sheriff in Oklahoma, and in the existential play No Exit, which has a lot to do with being a professional actor. After earning his BFA, John relocated to Los Angeles, where he appeared in Rent and Dreamgirls and Spamilton. That's the spoof version of Hamilton, among other musicals. And while on the West Coast, he also added film credits to his resume: The Dark, Be My Teacher, and Zephyr Springs. That's our friend John Devereaux. Guest number two is Jackie Ray from Athens, Georgia. She is now a New York City-based actress currently performing in the national tour of Wicked. She's the understudy for the roles of Glinda and Nessa Rose. There she is in the bubble, which she has performed numerous times during her 3 years with the show. Some personal highlights on the tour for Jackie have included performing for and meeting the legendary Stephen Schwartz, who wrote the music and the lyrics for Wicked, having her mom in the audience when she performed the role of Glinda. Yeah, mom's in the room, I know. And playing the Fox Theater in Atlanta, which brought friends and family to nearly every show for that month-long run for this Georgia girl. She's appeared on TV in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and as a theater student at TCU, her performance highlights included No No Nanette as a first-year student in the title role, oh, there she is, and getting to work in T.J. Walsh's original play, Born on a Sunday. That is the great Jackie Ray. All right, guest number three is Alison Whitehurst. And Alison is an actress and a singer from Sugar Land, Texas. She was recently seen as Cynthia Wilde in the national tour of Beautiful, the Carole King musical. Alison earned her BFA in theater performance from TCU, and her experience with the world premiere musical, The Fortress of Solitude at the Dallas Theater Center, catapulted her journey to New York, where she continued with the show opening off Broadway at the historic Public Theater. Alison loves the collaborative process of new work development and has been involved in a variety of readings and workshops leading to production, most notably Born for This, the B.B. Winans story about the Grammy-winning gospel singer and songwriter, which opened for audiences in Atlanta, Washington, D.C., where I got to see it, and Santa Monica. Alison also made her first TV appearance on the CBS show, The FBI. So those are our three guests, John Devereaux and Jackie Raye and Alison Whitehurst. And so just to get started, y'all, tell us where you are. Where's your current city? What's your current production? What's going on in your life? John, you're up first.
All right. Well, I actually just got off of the Angelica tour of Hamilton, and I'm currently on a little bit of a hiatus before my next contract. I'm in New York City right now, where I'm just coming off of Cloud Nine after being honored by TCU for their 150th anniversary, and waiting to go to the next thing that I can't announce yet to the public.
Okay, so we won't ask you what it is if you can't announce it.
It'll be coming soon. I'll be announcing it most likely next week.
Next week.
Mm-hmm.
But if you wanted to just drop a veiled hint.
It's something.
Think about that.
No, it's a show that I've done before.
Okay, that was good. That was good. Yeah, I like that, John. That was good. Jackie, where are you?
Howdy. Hello. I am in Norfolk, Virginia. We are here for 2 weeks. We normally do on the Wicked National Tour short 2-week stints. We normally do 4 to 5 to 6 weeks, but we decided to split Virginia kind of into two. So we just completed 2 weeks in Richmond, Virginia, and we'll do 2 here in Norfolk. So we just did 1 and we have 1 more week to go. And next, I am very excited, kind of up and coming this fall. We have some beautiful cities with Wicked. We are playing Chicago for 3 months, and it's very personal to this production of Wicked because this is technically the second national tour of Wicked. The first one closed back in 2011, and they had at the time, kind of like Hamilton and John, they had the Chicago company, the San Fran company, the Los Angeles company of Wicked around the time when Wicked was born in 2003. So the Chicago company that formed in 2005 became the second national touring company. They absorbed each other. And so it's always really personal for this show with the people backstage and on stage who were in that original Chicago company to go back to the Nederlander in Chicago because it's like a sweet little homecoming for them. But it's my personal first time playing Chicago, so I'll be there for 3 months, and then I get to round out the year with Christmas and New Year's at the Kennedy Center, and I'm so excited. It will be my first time there. So that's kind of my timeline with this sweet little subtle show we like to call Wicked.
Those are some great venues and great cities in your near future. That'll be exciting. Alison, how far from me are you right now?
I'm so close to you. I could probably pick up a rock and hit you. I'm in the great state. I'm in Fort Worth, Texas, and it feels good to be here, very much so. I'm excited for you, Jackie, to open in Chicago. It was one of my favorite cities that we hit while on tour with Beautiful. And what I'm doing, most recently, I closed a show of A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, which is a production that I have wanted to be a part of for a very long time. So that ran at the Water Tower Theater in Addison, Texas. So for anybody local that may have come to see that, thank you. It was a blast. I played Phoebe Dicewith. And then I, sort of similar to John, have a few irons in the fire that I think, can't quite announce without a formal press release just to be above board. But I will say that the next one coming up is going to be late winter, early spring. It'll be local, and it'll be a riotous comedy. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Oh. I want to know who directed A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder.
I'm so glad that you asked, Harry. a TCU professor, Miss Penny Ann Moss.
Yeah, she's pretty good.
She's fantastic.
Yeah, she is. Excellent. Excellent. I'm glad you got to work with Penny.
Me too.
She's really exceptional. All right, let's now kind of move into this discussion of what you have in common, which is that you've all done a big national tour or are doing a big national tour of a Broadway show. And really what we kind of want to know is, how did you get this role? Okay? How did you get cast in this national tour? And was there anything magical about how this happened? How much frustration was there? How many swings and misses did you have before you finally hit it out of the park and booked the gig? Jackie, let's start with you. Tell us about getting the role that you're doing now in Wicked.
It was a very interesting kind of like kismet preparation kind of thing. It kind of fell into my lap like most big auditions do. You don't ever get to prep for like big projects. It's all of a sudden you're like in 24 hours, you're doing a really big thing that could potentially change you for the next year or so. I've always known Wicked was a good show for me. So I had mentors in New York City who I became close with tell me at an early start, you should look out for the show. You're good for it. Let's start preparing. So I was laying the groundwork early, but not necessarily when I was at the right age to be a part of Wicked. I was already preparing behind the scenes. For example, I understudied the lead of Glinda. So I was having a voice teacher tell me, your voice is right for this, but you need to age into this. So let's start preparing that now. So I had 2 years of foundation work behind the scenes before I even knew I would be a part of this project. And then it happened to be, I signed up for a class to meet one of the directors in town. But the funny gag of this story is I didn't get in the class because it was too full. So I got this email that was like, nope, none for you. See you next time. We'll take your money next time. One of these pay to play classes, if you will, in New York City. It was a 3-week class where the students met once a week. It was the 3rd week of the class, and I got an email basically saying, hey, we have an opening tomorrow, and you expressed interest a couple weeks ago that you wanted this class. You would be a sub, so it would be kind of uncomfortable, but we would discount it majorly if you wanted to come in and sing for the music director of the show for the Broadway production. And I was terrified, but I also am a very brave person. So I said, sure, I'll go do it. I'll be the new kid in the class. But it just so happened that I got an audition from that class, and then I went into the show the next day. So it was a very speedy process, but I was prepared. And I always go off of this old Billy Porter interview, the very famous actor Billy Porter. And he always explains that preparation is key and that you will have a window in this industry. And that's when, Harry, you reference this luck thing. It's not really luck. It's just that you did your homework, and all of a sudden you have a pillar to get you to your next thing, and hopefully you've done your work to be prepared for that window that's opening. That's like throwing them, the window is getting thrown open, and are you ready to go through it? So then that next day I went in and I was off book, and I was prepared because I knew subconsciously this was a right project for me. And it took 5 auditions that summer of 2019, and I booked it. So I was prepared, but I also was in the right place at the right time because I reached out on my own time. And so it was luck, but it was also my hard work, but it was also, it's kind of that's kind of how it happens.
Yeah. So there's the things you can't control. And there's a lot of those in this business. What you have to do is be sure you've taken care of the things you can control.
Yes. Did I know I was booking it in the summer of 2019? No, I did not when I moved to New York in 2016, but that's when it happened.
I got you. Allie, let's hear your story. How did you get Beautiful?
Yeah. So,
I meant the show.
Love it. Thank you. So I love my story of how I found Beautiful, because I think for me, that opportunity coaxed me into something that I was very hesitant about, unsure if I could fill the shoes of. And for me, I wasn't familiar with the material or had done much coaching on that material specifically. But what I will say is that every single audition or relationship that I have built in this industry over the years everything feeds into that break or that window. And even if it's not the same material, it's just working with good people, watching good people. And really, it's the kindness of a brand new agent that got me in the room for Beautiful. I had recently changed representation, and after just having some exploratory calls with him as my new agent, he said, "You know what? I'm gonna call Stephen Copel, because I think that you would be really, really right for Beautiful." And they were casting for new talent to fill in the tour. And so I remember that I went in and I sang for him, and the music felt so good and the material felt so good. And it also sort of, to your point, Jackie, of like how we start to get older, and I sort of felt I was getting older and things started to feel fleshier to me. I just had more authority in the room, and that only came from audition after audition after audition, after roles that are right or quite right or sort of right, but really, and Cynthia just felt kind of in me, as did Marilyn, which is how I joined the tour. But I remember that I sang the material, and Steven looked at me and he goes, "Why don't I know you?" And I was like, "I don't know, but I'm so glad to know you now." They called me back, and I initially joined doing the Maryland track, which understudied Cynthia, and then had the great fortune of getting to take over the role later.
Excellent. Great. John, I think you had an adventure with Hamilton, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. When I got my first audition for it back when I was doing Dreamgirls in 2016 in Los Angeles at La Mirada Theater, and with McCoy Rigby. And this was a show that I really wasn't into at the time. I didn't get it. I was like, hip hop and history, it seems a little bit like appropriation. I don't know. I don't, it's not vibing with me currently. Mind you, I had not listened to the whole thing. I had watched a 10-minute YouTube video about the musical. So all of my cast was getting auditions for the show, and I got one. And I just told my agent, I don't feel, everybody else was so excited about it. And I told him, I don't feel this excitement about it. And I don't think I want to take this right now, because it doesn't feel right to audition for something that I'm not passionate or feeling about, because that's going to read to everybody. So I passed on the initial audition of Hamilton to join Hamilton. I passed on the audition. But then through the course that I was doing Dreamgirls for about 3 months, we went to Japan. So I had a lot of time with my cast, and they introduced me to the music of Hamilton. And when I listened to Wait For It, came up on shuffle one time when I'm doing dishes or whatever. And for the first time, I wept during a song for no reason. And I was like, what is happening? What is, I connected on such a level to this material, and Wait For It hooked me into the rest of the show. And I'm like, oh, okay, I see this message. I understand now what the show is about. So I ended up calling my agent and letting him know, hey, if Hamilton comes around again, let them know I'm so sorry for not taking the first one. And thank God they were gracious enough. I auditioned for the next 3 years with different roles, different people, different creatives. And every time I went in, they would add another character. I started with Lafayette Jefferson, then they would do Lafayette Jefferson with Washington, Lafayette Jefferson, Washington Burr, Lafayette Jefferson, Washington Burr, Hercules Mulligan. Like, that's how the process went. And I was doing a production of Dreamgirls in Los Angeles in 2019, and I was planning on moving to New York. So I moved to New York, and I was in New York for 3 weeks. I get a call from my agent again, asking if I'm available, because the team still thought I was in Los Angeles. And they're like, oh, we can come to you, or if you're able to come to New York. And I let them know, hey, I'm already here. So that day they set up a movement call and in New York. And I'm like, okay, sure, yeah, I'm free, I'm available, let's go, let's do it. I get to King's College, which is their studio, the Hamilton Broadway studio across from the Winter Garden Theater. And I get up there, it's Stephanie Clemens, who is the dance supervisor for all of the Hamiltons, me and one other guy. So I'm like, okay, I know what this is. This is the last call. This is the last one. So we go in, we do the My Shot choreography. I leave. Then a couple days later, I got a call and said they want you to be in the first national tour of Hamilton, and I had to leave the next week. And that's what I've been doing for the past 3 years. That's been life.
Yep. It's an exciting story. And,
Absolutely.
you know, we don't get tired of hearing them. So thanks all of you for sharing those. Allie, you played a principal role in Beautiful. So talk to us a little bit about playing a role every night as opposed to being in the ensemble every night and the same role. What did you love about Cynthia? Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Great. What I loved about Cynthia was that there was this great challenge of, if you were to see her words as text on the page, she can come across as very dry, pushy, aggressive. And you have to marry that text with enough levity and positivity and charm, which I know you can't really play charm, but you have to find that balance so that there's appeal and that you understand her and that you're behind her. And so that was sort of the eternal challenge of Cynthia. And what I love about her, that I have tried to just embody so much of what she taught me, is in her very first entrance, she comes in and she has decided before she enters, I'm not leaving there without a job. And so that drive and determination, and knowing that this was a heavily male dominated world, and she was going to be pitching this idea to a very powerful man who had the power to say, take a hike. She had to use the tactics she needed to use, her intellect, her charm, joie de vivre, to land that job. And she wouldn't take no for an answer. And so I very much love that. And I think what I loved just technically about the fact that it was a principal role was experiencing the small changes night to night, while also respecting the truth and the importance of maintaining the same quality of show 8 times a week, no matter where you are, because there's always somebody in the house that has never seen it before or has never seen a Broadway show. And so there is this responsibility to deliver. So yeah, it was a highlight. Loved it so much. Worked with incredible people that when you share a scene in space with an actor who's been doing it their entire life, you just can't help but get better, because they're just, right. You got to meet them.
Yeah. How long did you play the role?
So Cynthia would have been 10 months total.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know how many performances approximately of Beautiful that you were in?
Oh, my.
Okay, do your math.
All right, I'll do my math.
All right, I'll come back to you.
Yes.
John, do you know how many performances of Hamilton you've been in?
Yes, I have been. My stage management. Sorry, I had to turn off the air. It's a little hot. Stage management actually used to put these little. Is starting to put these little blurbs on people's happy trails when they leave.
Yeah.
So they let you know how many performances you've done. I've done over 700 performances of this show, of Hamilton. Wow. Yeah. And much to what Alison said, I think we do have a responsibility in inspiring those out there, because I met a man while I was in LA last week, who 62 years old, he was telling me, yeah, I just went to my very first musical. My daughter took me to go see Moulin Rouge at the Pantages Theater. And I was taken aback. I mean, usually in our minds, as a performer, we see this little kid out there who's got the merch from the show on, who knows the show so well, and it's just so exciting. And yes, we do it for them, but it opened my eyes to that there's thousands, millions of people out there of all ages, all creeds, all
Yep.
everything, who have not experienced the magic that is the craft of theater.
Mhm.
So it was a really great experience
Jackie,
being in that Uber.
Jackie, do you have any idea how many performances of Wicked you've done?
I do not know, since our stage management team does the same thing that they do at Hamilton. When you leave the show, you get a little blurb.
Yeah.
But I am still here for a little bit. But I wonder when, John, you started, because I started, and I think my first performance was like September of 2019. So I feel like I'm around like 600 something, 700 something. That's a lot of shows in the ensemble. My knees hurt.
Yes, because that is
My
that is
knees,
an
my knees
intense
hurt.
bit of work.
Yeah.
There's no question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do your math, Allison? Do you know yet?
Yes. So 320 performances as Cynthia,
Wow.
480 overall.
Impressive, friends. It's very impressive. All right. Now, John and Jackie, you are both have been or are currently understudying leads in the shows that we're talking about here. And so I'm curious to know what's your favorite role to get to go on for that you're covering? How much notice do you typically get? How do you stay ready if it's been a long time since you've gone on for a certain role and then here it comes again? Tell me what that process is like. John, let's start with you.
Well, being an understudy is tough because for me, because you have to. I love to watch artists and just take the things that they do so well, and I'm like, how can I make that mine? How can I like what this person does. I like what they do, but I have to fight that urge and make it my own, and make it my lived role because I have to add my spice to it. Um, my favorite role to cover, I love all these guys. Uh, I'm gonna tell you why I like all
Okay.
of them. My favorite is King George because I'm only on stage for 11 minutes, and I spend the rest of the time making TikToks. That is why King George is my favorite. I love George Washington for his arc, for being this commanding officer, but also there's something intrinsic. There's shame there that he brings up in History Has Its Eyes on You. There's greatness, that there's purpose. There's like this fatherly thing between Hamilton and Washington, and I just love to see that arc. And I like getting the 11 o'clock number in the second act, which is cool. And then I love Mulligan Madison because it's the camaraderie in the first act with Hamilton, and then the sheer disgust between the two of them in the second act. And I love playing both sides in that way. Most of the time, I don't know when I'm going on. I usually know who just went on, so I'm at least prepared enough to be like, oh, our other cover went on in the last city, so I'm next. So I should be ready at any time to go on. But if I just went on, I'm not thinking about that guy till the next rotation, so I can free up some mental space.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and also I'm an on-stage cover, so I'm in the ensemble every night, and also in rehearsals. So it's tough.
I think Jackie feels you. Yeah. Jackie, tell us your story about being an understudy.
Well, what's beautiful and refreshing for my tired, sometimes foggy brain to hear is that there's a lot of us unicorns out there doing the same thing in different shows and different brands of musicals. Yeah, it's so fulfilling, but it is incredibly exhausting. to play an onstage. I'm like John, so I am an onstage cover for two principals. I understudy the lead role of Glinda, the Good Witch, and Nessa Rose Throp, who is Elphaba Throp's sister. And they're completely different roles. As John just said, he has like a whole deck of cards. I have only two, which is challenging in itself because kind of like what he said about Madison and Mulligan. Glinda could not be more different than Nessa Rose, but that is so like so fulfilling as an actor to be like, I am playing white light one day and dark baby the next day. Like, it's so fulfilling because personally, my personality, my aura, I align a lot with Glinda. Becomes more natural to me when I'm just like flying around doing popular because that's how I act in real life. Whereas Nessa's still and she's in pain and there's like trauma. And I feel like it's a little bit more, a little bit less like me. But that is why we're actors, because we like to wear different shoes and we like challenges and we like to tell stories. So it's really fulfilling getting to do two sides of two completely different characters. I don't know when I will be on. It is just a spur of the moment thing, but that's what we sign up for and what people who want to cover and see themselves in this profession, this is what you sign up for. You don't know when you're going on, but that's okay because that's the job. I, in my 3 years here, have had some, we call them dates, like in the calendar. So like the women that I understudy will have personal days or planned vacations, so I'll know ahead of time. Like John, I know I can rest because we have a buddy system at Wicked. It's not, we don't do first and second covers, which some shows do. I do think the Broadway production has those, but us on tour, we just do it with the covers for each principal role. We trade off. So I know I can sit easy and sit pretty when I just went on last night. I know I'll probably have a couple weeks to a couple months to just put her back in the piggy bank. Like John, I didn't know this because this is my first time understudying. So my first time understudying is in a big freaking 3-hour musical. I didn't know how I was going to do and what my process was going to be like. But being in the world of Oz every single night, hearing the lines, seeing the blocking and seeing the characters, and just like John, like I completely like retweet everything you just said. I see the mannerisms and I see what worked completely, but I have to fight what it is because I know, like Alison was saying about truth as an actor, I can't replicate her bit because it will not be truthful, metabolized through me as an actor. So I see it and I see the bits, especially with such a comedic Kristen Chenoweth role like Glinda. I see the bits that work, but my challenge as an understudy and an actor is to find my own. And you will fall on your face and the moment won't work, but then the next time you try something different, it's going to work. And that just takes time and repetition. But I didn't know what my process was going to be like as an understudy, but I am quite surprised about how little outside work I do. It's very much focused when I'm indoors at work because I'm on stage, I'm absorbing the show every night, and I know where people are in the time space of the world because I see it every night. So I can just go in because I don't have to, it's all about trusting your surroundings. And we also are in rehearsals all of the time as understudies because we are a revolving door at Wicked, just like I'm sure Beautiful was, like I know Hamilton is. So we're a revolving door. We always have people coming and going. We're always in rehearsal. So we're always ready. But I was actually surprised. It's actually a surprising thing to see is how little outside like studying I do. Because now 3 years that I'm in this journey, I don't really do much outside studying. It's very much there's a lot of work to be done at work, which is why it's called work. And that's all for me.
That was great answers, everybody. Thank you. I want to ask you just a little bit now about life on the road, being on the road. What did you, what do you or did you love about the road? There've got to be benefits. And then what not so much, what were the things that were like maybe not so much? And here's a question I really want to know for anybody that's in a long run, whether it's a sit down in New York or on the road. What do you tell yourself when it's time to go to the theater and you don't want to go? Right? you're tired or your voice is not great. How do you get yourself ready to do your job on those nights when it's hard to do that? Plus life on the road. And we're going to start this time with Alison.
So I would say what I do, if it's a particular night where I'm just like, I don't want to do this, for me, I really feel like you're thrown out of an airplane. And because it's what I feel like I'm born to do, as soon as I hit the stage, it's just like, whoop, we're in. Okay, here we go. And I mean, I will definitely, if it's a particularly heavy day, I will say a prayer before I enter and say, help me through this, help me through this. But I find so much freedom on stage that it's almost like if I have a bad day, I can go there and feel a release. And so I guess to answer your second part of the question of what we loved and what was challenging, I loved all of the travel that we got to do, which goes without saying, all the places that you've seen. It's really nice in this industry when it really truly is feast or famine. Tour makes great money, and so you can save and be smart so that you have some wiggle room when a contract inevitably ends. And it's also just the work is so great and fun, and it's just I'm somebody that loves to work, so that aspect of tour was just like, cool, let's get it. This is what we're here to do, and I love that sense of purpose. I was married while on tour, so I would say that was probably one of the hardest aspects of being away from my partner. But I will say that he and I together have seen Canada and the United States because he would come up and he would visit, and we had the money to do that because it was a great job. And these are memories that, though it was difficult in the moment, these are memories that we will take with us for the rest of our lives. So yeah, some difficulties, but worth it.
Did he understand what you were doing as an actor?
Absolutely, because my sweetie has a BFA in acting.
I knew that. But I was just kind of giving you the leading question there. That's good.
Yes.
All right. John, how did you get yourself to the theater when you didn't want to be there? And then what did you love and maybe not so much about touring?
I've said since I've joined the tour that those 3 hours are the best 3 hours of my day. My friends are there. All the funny moments are there. I've created there's so many moments that I have during the show. Y'all know, I'm sure Alison and Jackie know that we create moments backstage that nobody else knows about. And it's just like getting to the theater is the hardest part. But like Alison said, once you're there, you're as actors, and especially an actor on tour, your body just goes into a muscle memory type of thing where your mind, your body gets game ready. It's like what happens to athletes, like when they enter the arena, like something happens. So I try to think about my friends who are there and all of that for myself. And then, as I said earlier, there's somebody out there who needs to see this performance from me. That's what I think. Right. And then I will say, if there are nights where it's just too bad, where I know if I go to this theater, I'm probably not going to give the best performance, or it's not going to be good for me, I will call out, because we have a certain number of days, sick days, but we also have mental health days now, to where it's like, if something's going on and it would just break me to go to the theater right now, yes, I just take a day, Yes. It's hard. Also, another hard thing is living out of suitcases and piles of clothes. It's tough. I also, we get a trunk that's separate from our suitcases and everything, that usually we put our oversized coats in, our winter clothes, hot plates, yoga mats, all these things. But I'm running my business out of my trunk. I have a candle business that I made during the pandemic. So all of my supplies are in my trunk Right. I'm a traveling salesman selling my wares out of a trunk. Original Ali Hakim right here.
Love it.
So I have to put all of my stuff in my suitcases. So that's cool. And I think, wasn't there a third part to this question? I think I lost. Was there a third part?
What do you like about being on the road?
Oh, what I like about it. No, it's great. I love seeing other cultures and other communities. I love being surprised when going to a city where you're thinking, oh, I'm not gonna say it, but we're going to this city, there's probably not gonna be much to do there. And then you get there and there's so much culture. The food's great, the people are great, the audiences are great, and you learn while on the road how big the world is, and how the more you know, the less you know. And I think it's so important to experience that. And I'm just one of these people. I'm a sponge, and I love to learn, and I love to watch. I love to observe. So anytime I can just be somewhere where I'm not familiar, that I don't know about, I get so excited, and it kind of balances out all the hard stuff about tours. I think it outweighs it. I think the good definitely outweighs the bad.
It's wonderful to be surprised, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah,
it's a thrill. Yeah. Okay, we have to do the commercial before I forget. If I'm interested in your candles, John, how do I find out more about them?
Well, you can go to no, it's not there. Ofyoursproducts.com. Ofyoursproducts.com.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Jackie, how do you get yourself to the theater when you don't want to go?
It's like meditation. You kind of, those days where you're like, uh-oh, because they have crept up now that I'm literally celebrating 3 years on Thursday. And they're more frequent than they were when I joined 3 years ago. But I think that's natural, and that's human to acknowledge that something becomes a little bit more hard, because it's harder on my body now than it was 3 years ago.
Right.
And I ultimately think, because I adore the show, I adore this company. If I do go one day, it may be because I don't know if my body can keep up in this particular role, this ensemble role that's covering multiple. It's just body warfare. I have a dear friend in the show that has transitioned to the Broadway company, and I miss her dearly, but I would sit next to her every day. She was my dressing room gondola mate, and she and I would meditate, and that kind of came into like something I do before the show when it gets really hard. And because there are dark days, there are these mental health days where you're in a random city. No tea to the city, no shade to the city, but you're not near your family. This is a hard thing about tours. If you slip into phases where you do feel lonely and not connected, because how John explained it is it's crazy adrenaline. You go to the show for 3 hours and you are like, my family, yes, let's go. And you're doing it. And then you're in your hotel room alone again for the next 16 hours. And it's hard. So I meditate, and my friend and I decided that the healthy balance to tour life is it's like juxtaposing thoughts, but to make sure that you understand both can live next to each other. You can be grateful, but you can be exhausted. And you can feel full, but also feel empty. Yeah. It's these like very like, those are both okay. The extreme emotions are both okay. So it's a lot of quiet time. And like John, I used to be afraid to call out, but and for those of you that don't know what calling out is, it's you literally just you're not going to show up to work. You're taking a sick day like anybody else would, and they're normal jobs. But I used to be terrified to call out, and now they are coming because I need it, and that's okay. And we have beautiful positions in our shows called swings who are more than ready to go on and love going on. So, that we all have a place.
It's good for everyone.
Yes. And sometimes your place is to not go to work, because am I going to harm myself or others? And I do not say physical harm, but just mental warfare harm. So I think there was other things to the question.
Something you love and don't love about the road. Things you love.
I love traveling. Just like I'm sure they both can agree with me. I think there are pros and cons to both being at a Broadway house and doing Wicked and doing the touring company of Wicked. But I can only speak to the touring because I'm not at the Gershwin, but I traveling is such a plus. We have more of an income because of being on the road than in New York, and I don't have New York City taxes,
Right.
which is a big human thing that all of a sudden, you're out of college and you're like, taxes,
Correct.
What do you know? But traveling, and we have an organization with Wicked called Change for Good, just to play on, our 11 o'clock number, and it's an outreach program to connect to the cities and the communities in the cities that represent the city and that also represent Wicked, because Wicked is it's a big showy musical, but it's also quite political, as it should. And we've created this this outreach program in the pandemic, and that's something we brought into the world of Wicked after we came back, and it's just shown that this show reaches so many people, just like theater should. It's out to change the world. Theater TCU plug. And it's just, yeah. So that's been a beautiful thing of touring, is meeting these communities and working with them in their gardens and their homes and their environment. Because that's what we get to do on tour, is go into communities' environments and also hopefully reach their minds.
Well, thank you, all of you, for those insights. I think for those that are on the outside of this business and are just interested to listen, that they may be surprised to hear how taxing it is. 3 hours a day, that's all you work, right? But it is mentally and physically grueling, and it's like anything. If you're going to be committed to the level that you have to be to perform at the level that the three of you perform and your companies perform every night, it's incredibly draining. And I applaud you all and the industry for making finally a few steps towards wellness for physical and mental health that is critical for everyone. And so hooray for that. That's good news, all about that. I'm watching the clock here, and I'm also looking at some questions that have come in the private chat. So let me move to some questions that some of our viewers have asked. One of them, which of course I'm very interested in: what was your most impactful experience at TCU and why? Thank you, Kristen Queen from the School of Music, for asking that question. John, I'm gonna start with you.
Well, when I came into TCU, I was a communication studies major up to my sophomore year. And one of my friends in one of my general studies classes, Kelsey Milborn, theater student, she would always, she found out I did theater in high school, and she would just nudge me to oh, you should pick up a theater minor. Oh, you should do this. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I don't know if I could be up to that caliber. I will say I eventually got into the program and everything, but I think, and this is not because Harry's the moderator, I think one of the most impactful things that has happened is first Jennifer Engler casting me in Spelling Bee when I felt like I was not up to par with theater TCU students. I wasn't even in theater. So that's the first thing. But I don't know if you remember, Harry, but when you came to see Spelling Bee, afterwards we were in the lobby and you came up to me and said, we didn't know you could sing like that. And I said, neither did I. I didn't know either. And I think why that's so impactful to me is like, that was the moment I started realizing my own talent. And it was the opening of a door, of a gateway, that led me down a path of confidence in myself, confidence in my worth, and confidence in my abilities for the next 3 years. So yes, that was a very impactful experience for me.
Thanks. This is a great story. Jackie, how about you?
I'm going off of a couple instances in my head, but I have one that's screaming at me, so I'll choose that one. I got to perform in many shows at Theater TCU, and they all impacted me in so many ways because educational theater is quite important. At the time, I was like, why isn't this professional? But they like each show taught me something extreme, and like, working with each theater faculty on each show was quite a journey. I learned so much from all of you that I still use in my everyday life. But I would say the most impacted moment was when I decided to approach Alan Shorter and TA for him.
Mm.
It made me like view like theater differently, and like communicating and working with freshman level kids who were just only 3 years younger than me. But it was a very beneficial time of mine at Theater TCU when I was a senior and you were drained and you're taking 20 hours and you're doing the performances and you're also working in town and you're working on senior showcase. It was a draining year for me, but that was when I also recognized something, and I can't wait to be a teacher one day because I know my life is always going to be about theater and the stage and storytelling because it ignited something in me. And it was just a really special time to watch the love of Theater TCU that I had when I came in as a freshman through their eyes, and to like, and now they're all doing great. It's crazy. It's crazy. So that was just a crazy full circle, wide eye open moment.
Well, I love that story because being an intern means you're other focused for that time. And as we all know, that's a quality that every great actor has.
Yeah.
People think they have a stereotype that actors are narcissistic and self-focused. Great acting is other focused. It's about connecting with somebody else on stage, connecting with somebody else in the audience. It is about someone else, not about you. And so that's very consistent, Jackie, with who you are as a performer. I'm not surprised to hear that. Allison, can you think of a moment at TCU or something you did at TCU that had a great impact on you?
Yes. So I have a million of them. There are two specifically that comes to mind. And again, one is screaming, but I'll give just one moment to another. I remember that I went in for, couldn't even tell you, it may have been Urinetown, maybe. And I brought in my piece and I absolutely bombed, horribly bombed, to the point that the feedback I got was, well, we know you and what you bring to the table. But based on that, we wouldn't have known that you can even sing, Allison. Like, what happened? Let's talk about that. And I think that in this industry, learning how to bomb and bounce back is huge. And I can tell you, it was maybe one of my first memorable bombs, but it was not the last. And I just continued to do it in rooms across New York City. Not a ton, but it happens. So that's very more memorable. That has marked my mind of like, oh, that can happen. And how do we make sure it doesn't? And then when it does, if it does, how do we build back from that?
Right.
But my time working in Oklahoma, my junior year, under the direction of the wonderful Harry Parker, who is here with us today, was a very pivotal point for me, I think, in my growing into an adult. And it was also time where very recently prior to that and taking on that role, I had joined up with Angela Turner Wilson, who was my voice teacher. And she helped me find my voice in a way that was very different. And it was big. And it was something that sort of poured out of me that wasn't controlled. And as somebody who's perfectionistic, controlling, wanting to appear a certain way, when you learn how to really sing in your body, it teaches you how to not regulate yourself. And it's something that comes from like the deepest part of your body, like up through the floor. And I've grown much since then and still pull on things that Angela's taught me. But Oklahoma, with that style of music and taking on those songs and in that character, it gave me the first opportunity to use those new tools. So Oklahoma was big for me.
All right, another question from our viewers, maybe our last one as I'm watching the clock. tell us something, maybe one of the biggest things you didn't learn at TCU that you wished you had. What should we have taught you that we didn't teach you so we can do better, Jackie? Yeah, you.
Okay. Let me think about this. I think something that I was not taught and that I kind of had to like stumble through was the business side of I think the bit because I am my own business just like these two actors are too, and we have to navigate through our agents and we have to like we contract negotiate and we have to like time management. I think maybe not time management, but I think I've I've had to figure out my voice and my worth, but in terms of money, which it's it's
Yeah.
not important, but it is. And so I think maybe if we focus a little bit more on that, and you know what, as I'm saying this, I'm going to edit this too. I also think the aspect of like having your cushion, your survival jobs, your talents that will support you to the gigs that we are all discussing right now is extremely important and not talked about enough, because I think, I mean, there was a time in New York where I was working 4 jobs and I almost killed myself, you know, and that was the season before I booked Wicked. And so I think making all of us theater TCU students say, what else are you good at? This one other thing, and don't shove all your light in there, but what's one feasible thing that we can help you as adults, and you're paying for a tuition, help you go into like something that can support your craft while you're in your in between. I felt a little on my own in that aspect, but but the great thing about our network is so many TCU frogs above me gave me connections in the city to my little survival jobs while I was in between my gigs. So that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, the Frog Mafia. Yeah, they're pretty powerful. Tell me, Jackie, did you go to Showcase?
Yes. Yes,
Okay, but Allison and John did not. Is that right? That's something Jackie graduated just a couple years later, and Showcase doesn't solve everything, but it's at least more about the profession. I think that's helpful, something we've added since then.
Yes, I agree.
Allison, tell me about something you wished you'd learned.
I think the one that comes to mind for me, honestly, is one of those truths that doesn't hit if you're told it. It's something that you just kind of have to find out for yourself. And what I love to tell people is that you have to remember the rules and what you're taught and then forget them. And I think that trusting your instinct and let's take the example of Cosette and Les Mis. You may have the idea that Cosette and Les Mis is small and dainty and quiet and yearning. But also, if that's not where Cosette lives in your body, go do your Cosette, and they'll take it or they'll leave it. And that shift was huge for me, of like, you want to get the education and understand and respect the style and understand the characters and how to do it well, but not sacrificing what's ultimately true Alison embodying who Cosette is, because that's way more evocative than trying to mimic something.
You know, one of my favorite quotes is the great cellist Pablo Casals, who used to say to his students, "Now that we have learned all the notes, let us promptly forget them." John, what do you wish you had learned at TCU?
Honestly, I wish I would have known more about in the industry, the unions, getting into unions and how to utilize the contracts and utilize once you join a union to your advantage, like what you can do and how you can use your union to benefit yourself and your career. That's something I learned on the fly. Like as I was progressing through my jobs, I would always have somebody there. I would always somehow be close to the deputy, the equity deputy of the show, who knows knows the union back and
Right.
front. So I'm like, that's fantastic. So I've gotten tips from them, but I would like to, have my own research. But I think even outside of theater, TCU, I think something that I wish, and this is a personal experience. I wish that there had been, and it's better now. It's so much better now. And I'm not saying this because I'm like jaded by it, but I'll say what I'm proud has changed. I am so happy that there is a community in Theater TCU and in TCU as a whole for Black students, for all students of color to have a community and to be celebrated and to celebrate each other and to find connection in that way. Because I think as a Black person, I feel like connection to your community is just so important. So being connected in the TCU community, in the theater TCU community, I just wish I would have had that little extra ring of Black theater TCU community. But it's happening now. So
It is, and it's a thrill for all of us. And
yes,
it is long overdue, but it is a thrill for all of us. Yeah. Friends, the hour has flown by. Now, before we leave, we did get a candle commercial in there. If any of you have any kind of social media handles or websites or anything you'd like to share with the group, now is the time. You got anything you want to say, John?
So y'all can find me on Instagram at the John Devereaux, on TikTok, which is I'm acting a fool on TikTok, at the John Devereaux. And again, for your candles, ofyoursproducts.com. That is ofyoursproducts.com.
Thank you. Jackie Raye, do you have anything you want to sell here?
And I wish I had a candle company too. But alas, I'm just a girl. I have an Instagram handle. You can find me at Jackie E. Raye. And I have a Twitter handle called J Raye. And I'm not on TikTok. I'm on Facebook, but that's mainly for my friends and family. But that's about it. And I wish
Don't tell us things you don't want to tell us, Jackie. No.
But yeah, you can find me primarily on Instagram. That's my formal way.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Alison, do you have anything to add?
Yes, you can follow me on Instagram, and it's at Ali Whitehurst. But Whitehurst has no U in it, which is...
I see that. And Ali is A-L-I.
ALIWHITEHRST.
Got it. All
Follow
right.
for lots of dog content.
Yeah. It is not a surprise to me that this has been such a great panel. I could sit and talk to you guys anytime, anywhere. What a pleasure to get to sort of do it publicly, and hope we benefit a few other people. But when you miss me, John, call me, okay? If you get lonely out there on the road, Jackie, you just let me know. And Alison, we'll get our spouses together and go eat dinner or something. That'd be fun. Too bad about the rest of you. She's in the fort. What can I say? Thank you to everybody who's watched. Thank you for joining us tonight as we talked about life on a national tour. Some of our outstanding alums. Special thanks to John Devereaux, to Jackie Raye, to Alison Whitehurst, and to our partners, TCU Magazine, the TCU Alumni Association, and the Office of Social Media Management. Now, you can read more about these talented performers, did you know this, at magazine.tcu.edu, and you can stay in touch with the TCU Alumni Association at alumni.tcu.edu, and also on Horned Frogs Connect, like we do. All right, everybody, thank you. Go Frogs.
Thank you.